Yo, what is up? This is John Lavido here with the progress update from April. Well, it's April now, but this is really about March last month. So yeah, hope you're doing good. Today I wanted to talk about the hardest thing about making music. And for me, I think the hardest thing is the feedback. Making music's easy enough. You sit down, you make some music, look up tutorials, that's cool. But eventually you got to put your music out there into the world. And when you do that, you get some feedback that's not always so good. And to give you some examples, like I'm in the process of releasing a track. I was so pumped about it. I'm still really pumped about it. But, almost as soon as I sent it out to a few channels and labels, I'm getting feedback like, we're not really feeling the hype stand out in this tune. It's interesting. We're not feeling the drop. It could be much heavier for us. The vocals could be a bit more powerful. And so you get this sort of feedback coming in, and it's just... I know it's a good thing, and I know I need it, and I know it's part of the process, but it can just really sort of rock you a bit. You're really excited. I'm really excited about, say, a track that I'm about to put out, and then I put it out, and I find out that, well, it's not as good as I thought it was, and that's part of the learning process. So the reason I mention this is not really, I'm not really a sort of person to complain, but I just wanted to share a bit more about what I struggle with instead of just sharing the good stuff. Like when I released Your Face in March. The track I released in March, I thought the vocals that I'd put on there were pretty good, and I found out really quickly that they were not. They just weren't good enough. A few some people were pretty nice. They're like, yeah, the vocals need work. Some people were just kind of like, look, the vocals suck. They're just flat out, they're not good enough. Which is fair enough. Now that I've had some time to reflect, it's fair enough. And if I want to sing, I need to learn how to sing properly, which makes sense. But at the time, it kind of hurts, and it's frustrating and I think for me, it takes a bit of the excitement out of it, and then it's not as, it's sometimes a little bit harder than to say, wake up the next day and work on the music. Cause I get stuck in my head thinking, oh man, this shit, this sucks, it's whatever. So it doesn't slow me down, it doesn't stop me, but it's definitely something that jars me a little bit. And maybe I think it's the same for most people. So just wanted to share that. That's something that I struggle with. Totally essential though. Feedback is totally critical to the learning process. Without feedback, I'm not going to know that I'm bad at singing, or I'm not going to know some of these things. So I totally believe that while it's difficult, it's absolutely essential. So yes. Now, as for March, what happened? If you look on the homepage, the fan count has more than doubled, thanks to the social media campaign I've got running on Twitter and Instagram. So like I mentioned last month, actually, it's debatable whether these social media followers will count as real fans. But I want to take my chances, because my thinking is that if I can add a couple thousand lukewarm, let's call them lukewarm followers, they're not really warm, they're not hot, they're just sort of like, oh, this guy's interesting, he followed me, I'll follow him back. If I can add a few thousand each month, then most of those might be lukewarm. But there's going to be a handful that check out my profile, look at my photos, and go and listen to the songs, because I've made sure that there's a link to a song in every bio and everything like that. It's very easy to find a song that I've made when you're on Twitter or Instagram for me. And so a handful of people will become true fans, and that's just not. I'm not just guessing at that. I've got people who are messaging me every month now with stuff. It's not a large amount of people, but it's enough that I can see. Well, maybe there's a few thousand here that are following, and there's a small amount that are messaging me. And one guy, he even asked for my autograph and told me I was one of his favorite producers, alongside Avicii, Skrillex, Marshmello, and Carnage. So that was pretty cool. And yes, I did send him my autograph. So that was the first one ever. Hopefully not the last. So that's one thing I'm doing. Picked up about 400 new email subscribers, thanks to, you might be watching this, you might be coming from this, thanks to an Anders Ericsson interview I posted on EDM Prod, which is all about how to learn. So you should definitely check that out. The link's in the post. And added some download gates to each of the songs on SoundCloud. So it'd be interesting to see if we can get the SoundCloud followers to catch up to the other ones. Now, I don't think if I've mentioned this before, maybe I have, but I mentioned some people, you might be wondering, like, why the hell am I tracking my fans and followers so closely? Isn't this just meant to be about fun? Aren't you just meant to, forget about that and just make music? And while I agree with that sentiment, and I totally do want to be having fun, I think that, I have a goal, and I want to take the music in a certain direction, and I want to reach certain goals. And the only way to get to those goals I've found, and this is in other areas of my life, the only way to get something that I want is to track some kind of metric to figure out am I heading in the right direction? How fast am I going? Slow? Like, what do I need to do differently? And the easiest example of this is the gym. If you don't track your how much weight you're lifting in the deadlift or the squat or the bench press, it's really hard to try and make it go up, because each time you go in, you're just guessing. The same thing with your weight. If you want to, gain weight and bulk up muscle, or if you want to lose weight and get rips, if you don't track your weight on a scale every day, you're not going to know whether you're eating too much food or too little food. And so the same applies to music. If I'm not tracking the amount of fans that are, people that are showing up on Twitter and Instagram and that sort of thing, I don't really have any idea of, maybe it's working, maybe it's not. I could guess just by seeing, just check my SoundCloud each day and see who's following me. Like, I'd have a rough estimate. But when I do it this way, I can then look at a graph, and you'll see the graph on the homepage. It's actually in the post as well. I can look at a graph, and it tells me exactly where it's going. What's the trend going? Is it speeding up? Is it slowing down? And then because I track it, I've got a screen right here with all of it. Facebook, SoundCloud, Twitter, all that stuff. I could look at, say, like, SoundCloud's lagging behind. So, maybe I need to focus more attention in that area. So that's how I'm thinking about it. I'm not saying you have to do that or everyone has to do it, but I've just found it to, when you want something, it's really, really important to track some kind of metric or several metrics related to that goal that you're trying to get to, because it just increases the chances of you hitting it. So yeah, so that's it. That's this month. Pretty quick one. Everything's good. I'm in the process of releasing Promoting War, so that'll be out soon. I'll shoot you an email when that's ready. The Deliver Practice article is done. These are things I said I'd do last month. I checked the post. And got a new track, which is sort of just getting going. It's not really done yet, but that'll be done this month. Going to create a collaboration spreadsheet, which I'll explain probably next time. So I explain exactly how that works. That's pretty cool. And started on the track. So other than that, one thing I'll be doing is investing a bit more time in my sort of non-music business, because I want to increase the money coming in there so I can invest in more software ads and traveling to events such as music festivals or something like ADE in October. So yeah, that's the wrap. That's March. It's a good month. Everything's ticking forward. Feedback's good, and yeah. So let me know, what about you? What's coming up for you in April? Is there any way? How can I help you? Post a comment below, and let me know. And yeah, thanks for listening, and see you next time.